Welcome to the next breakthrough with Sean Campbell. Today, I'm welcoming Tim Combridge. He is from Salesforce Ben, and he argues that working with AI isn't like coding, it's actually like directing a team of humans. We're going to discuss why AI is a tool to assist rather than an employee to hire, and why the golden rule of the future is if you don't understand what the AI is actually doing, then don't do it. Welcome, Tim. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm very, very well and well summed up. I like that. Appreciate you having me on.
Please tell the audience a little bit about yourself, Salesforce Ben, a little bit of the work you do, and then we'll dive in and discuss some of the changes that we're seeing, especially in the enterprise space around AI.
No, definitely, yeah. So I'm Tim Combridge. Been around the Salesforce world for about a decade now. Recently, I've joined full time the Salesforce Ben team. So I've been working with them for just over half a decade now, and have officially become part of the furniture, I suppose. So Salesforce Ben may be sort of more well known for their articles and webinars, but we also sort of have newsletters and the podcast and YouTube channel as well. There's all sorts of in-person events at Dreamforce and TDX and all that sort of thing. More or less, our goal is to help share education and share information through the Salesforce ecosystem, to sum it up relatively quickly. So that's what we do. A good team to be part of, and yeah, it's definitely right up my alley. I love helping people learn and sharing information. So yeah, bang on.
Yeah, and it's great to have these outside but people that are out there, they're experts around certain technologies that can give a different perspective than you might hear from the vendors themselves. I know working in the world around enterprise software and even but being part of software companies actually pitching product to customers, there is different perspectives that we would have internally than the customer's perspective, or what they've experienced when they actually have to implement these solutions. And I think leaders out there sometimes get a bit lost. They don't really know where to start, what to believe. And I think having someone like you to talk to and understand, what's the reality, what are people hearing, how do you actually solve some of those problems that are, beyond the demo?
That's it. No, definitely. Well said.
So you have a lot of experience working in a number of roles throughout the Salesforce ecosystem, starting off with, that first role. A lot of people come into the ecosystem as an admin. That's the first, even when I had actually worked for Salesforce before, and the first thing you have to do is go get your administrator certificate,
Good.
certification. So, but I think with AI, things are changing a bit. Can you give us a little bit perspective from your side on what you think that role is going to look like going forward? What's your perspective on the role of the admin going forward?
I think it's going to be a really interesting time for Salesforce admins. It's a different landscape now if you're coming into the Salesforce ecosystem than it was when I came in. You know what I mean? So we've gone from a big drought of needing new people in the ecosystem at the admin level, and it's sort of tapered off a little bit, and roles have changed, and the project types have changed, and the way that businesses sort of manage their organizations have changed. Not to say at all that the admin role is dying out to any degree, even with sort of AI now entering the scene. I think what we're going to see is a big shift in terms of what that role actually means. And I think back to when I was an admin, so similar sort of thing. Everybody's got that accidental admin story, and well, most people sort of enter into Salesforce admin accidentally. That was certainly my story. I came in as an IT IT guy, I suppose, and was given Salesforce to look after. And the admin role that I had was managing data, cleaning up a lot of data, cleaning up when automations may have gone wrong, adding in a few small automations. Like that was what the admin role was back in my day, for lack of a better way of putting it. And that was 10 years ago. So you think about today, what does that realistically look like? And even in terms of where I got help, Salesforce has always been like the community has always just been standout in terms of, if you've got an issue, somebody out there has probably faced it before and has probably documented it. And if not, they're happy to answer a question. It's the beauty of the Trailblazer community. It's the beauty of the extended Trailblazer community beyond just the walls of trailhead.com and all that. But what does today look like in terms of what an admin will do or will need help with? And I think with all these different AI tools coming in, we're going to see a lot less, and in the future as well, there's a lot of sort of forward-looking stuff. I think we're going to see a lot less, potentially even the eradication of creating custom objects, creating custom fields, creating basic granular permission sets. Like even for demos I do today, I'll use Agentforce Vibes to just go and build the perm sets that I want, because it saves me a whole bunch of time going into menus and clicking stuff and adding bits and pieces in that I know I can do and it's relatively repetitive. So I just can AI to do it on my behalf, if that makes sense. So I think the jobs that are to be done in that admin role, nothing's going away, but the way that they're done will change with AI. So instead of going into menus and all that, it may just be you interfacing with an AI and saying, hey, I need, a perm set built that does this, this, and this. Can you go do it? Cool, back, done. It's different. It's still being done, and it's still being done by the admin. It's just a different interface and a different way of approaching it, if that makes sense.
So as a leader, if you're looking for someone, your company or enterprise or even your small business has purchased Salesforce, your first thing you do is you need somebody to manage the project or manage the product, the product owner of some kind, somebody who's going to drive the change, deal with the stakeholders. But also there's that aspect of the data. So
Mm,
AI is popping up literally everywhere. What's going to be the differentiator? If everything becomes a commodity,
mm,
then is it the proprietary data that's going to stand out? You need somebody like an admin that's going to be responsible for a bit of that data stewardship to make sure that it's governed well, certain data is not shared with certain people,
mm,
and it's protected, but it's also leveraged for different services you can offer your customers or new ways of improving operations. What's your thought around that? Not just receive requests and kind of fix stuff and be an
mm.
admin of, user groups and permissions and parameters and that build reports and that sort of thing, but actually elevating the role almost until to like a systems architect sort of role. Like
Mm.
what are your thoughts around that?
I think now more than ever, you've got to be a good communicator as an admin, and not to say that that wasn't important before, but I think it's even more important now. So the when it comes to how do I create a custom field, is very different to should I create a custom field. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And I don't like the how will likely change, because we're going to see AI tools jump in and start doing these things for us, but it doesn't change the should I. And a lot of these AI tools that we have access to today are very much, I receive a task, I, you know, understand it to whatever degree that I have context and a decent prompt, and then I go do the thing, right? And the current tools we have anyway today are not going to go, oh, do you really need another long text field? Could we not leverage, notes here or something like that? So I think understanding the best practices, understanding how to ask good questions to your stakeholders, and how to fully and deeply understand the issues that they've got, how to fully and deeply understand the business processes that they're trying to build into the system, working with them to really make sure that whatever is built, again, whether it's hand built as in create new object, what's the name, blah, 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 or you tell an AI to do the thing on your behalf, getting that design right. So there is definitely that element of architecture. There's a book. Carl Vescovi wrote a book called "Think Like an Architect: A Compass for Salesforce Admins," and it talks about this exact thing. And I've been reading it, and it's just been an extremely valuable book, talking about how you need to be ready to ask the right questions. You need to be ready to do more than just in one ear and go and do it. You've got to think, you've got to communicate. So I think there's architect skills. Yes. There are BA skills that you need more than ever. Soft skills are going to, I don't want to say more important than tech skills and tech understanding, because as we'll get to very, very soon, you need to know what you're doing with the tech. The AI is not going to replace the need to know the tech. But it is going to be extremely important, extremely valuable that admins have that bigger thinking in terms of architectural design, and also are able to communicate and interface with, the business and other stakeholders as well, very well. I think there's going to be a lot more focus on soft skills than ever before. Not to say it wasn't
Well,
before.
I believe especially those business analysis skills will be
Hmm.
extremely important. Whether you're doing that as a separate role entirely because the organization is quite large, a number of
Hmm.
stakeholders you got to deal with, or if you're on the smaller end of a company size, maybe you're blending the roles with an admin plus BA kind of mixed role, and even more into the developer side, right? AI is going to provide a lot of these tools that's going to help speed up things, whether it's, using something like, like tools to take processes and quickly draw process maps, or ask the right questions of your
Mm,
stakeholders, or draft your functional spec, or whatever you're doing, is just to help you kind of kickstart the process. But I think
that's right.
it's that whole garbage in, garbage out. Like, if you don't know what to ask or have any experience in that domain and of knowledge, like, you can't really trust the output too much. If you're not sure what it's doing, then don't do it. Like,
Hmm.
you had a nice metaphor for that. What was that metaphor?
Oh, look, we had the discussion around, autopilot in a car or in a plane or whatever. And, if you think about it in terms of, okay, cool, I'm going to sit behind the wheel of this vehicle and I'm okay because the car, the plane, whatever it is, the AI is driving the vehicle. Okay, cool, I'm safe. What happens when the AI switches off? Okay, and the Salesforce flip side of that is, if you're vibe coding something, if you're an admin and you're like, I want to build an Apex trigger that does whatever, and I don't have experience in Apex, but I know that vibe coding, I can just tell it to do it and it will do it. And it works, great, okay, write me a test class, great, okay, let's push it into production, great, okay, awesome, this is brilliant, now I can have Apex written for me. And then there's a problem, and the AI is not there to, either not there or is unable to resolve the problem. That's when you've got an issue. So, the whole concept of driving in a car and you've got an autopilot on, but you don't know how to drive a car, that's crazy talk. Nobody would do that. Well, you'd hope nobody would do that today. But it's the same thing with all these AI tools. Just because the tool can do it doesn't mean that you should be driving it, because it is a tool. I don't like this idea of, it's an AI employee. It's an AI employee. It's AI is not here to be somebody right now. Certainly today, it is a tool that you as an admin can use to speed up your workflow, to be more productive, to handle all those repetitive tasks that you know how to do, but in a much quicker way, in a much more effective and efficient way, right? It's not there to, don't worry, we've got admin and a vibe coding tool. We don't need a developer. That's crazy talk. That's dangerous talk. So if you do not know what the tool that you are using does, do not get the tool that you're using to do the thing. Because if there's a problem down the track, you're in trouble. It could
And
also
I
be,
and we say, and the funny thing is that we just said, like, what you just said is, if you're thinking about replacing all your developers, fire all of them, and just having vibe coding going on, then it sounds a bit nuts, right? Like, but if we go back to 3 years ago,
mm,
ChatGPT comes out. If we said some of the things we could do now that we
mm,
couldn't do back then, the people would have said, "Yeah, you're crazy. Why are you saying these
yeah,
things?" Well, we actually can do some amazing things today. The AI employee, if you want to call it that, or the
mm,
AI digital assistant or whatever,
mm,
coming soon, will have amazing capabilities, but I think it'll take a lot of training and a lot of
mm,
observation of the real world, and a lot of observation and inputs from people that actually know what they're doing. Because if you're training AI on people who are not very good in their jobs, then you're probably going to get an AI that's not so good,
that's
right? I think
very good
it's
call.
probably definitely going to go that route, but I think it's going to take some time. And I think, to your
Mm,
point, you can't just turn it loose today and say, vibe code me an entire, CRM. Well,
mm,
you'll get something that's functional probably, but
hopefully.
um, I mean, you can tell me if you've heard stories around, people vibe coding stuff and getting security issues and that sort of thing. So.
Oh, mate. Yeah, look, there's no examples that I'll talk about in the Salesforce space. There's been a few. In fact, I won't name any names, obviously, because I don't want to sort of you know cause any grief. But we have seen examples in the last 6 months, quite massive breaches where people have vibe coded things, not understood what was being done, and there have been massive security breaches as a result. Like again, and there's a whole discussion around deterministic versus probabilistic. If you tell a vibe coding tool, go and do this, this, and this, it's gonna take, more or less, it's gonna take what you've done, go, okay, this is what I know, what you've told me, plus the language to write it in or whatever, and I'm gonna go and do this. You may not have given it the full instructions. If you say, go and build me an app that people can log in and they can see this and they can see that and they can see this and they can see that, but I'm talking about an off Salesforce example that I can think of. You haven't told them to lock up the database and encrypt it or whatever else. You've just got a database that's kind of just sitting there.
Mm,
And somebody who does know what they're doing, very, very quickly you can find that and go, oh, so the UI shows me this, but if I just go and access it another way, I can see everything. And that's dangerous. So if you don't know what the tool is doing, don't use the tool. Do not use the tool. It's dangerous.
mm. You said 2 terms there, which I think, I understand, but maybe others who are watching this may not. A lot of people just think, "Oh, AI is almost like a Google. You put in something, you get a response back." I think slowly people are learning, that it's not the same like a search engine. And then when they do put things in, they get different responses based on how they
Mm,
ask the question. So there is this concept of deterministic versus probabilistic. And I think a lot of times people want to say that the AI, because they're probably selling you an AI or something, is telling you exactly what you want, what you need every time, 100% of the time, which is not the case. It is more like a creative, somewhat assistant. So, can you just explain, just really briefly for the non technical,
mm.
what's the difference between deterministic and probabilistic and why, that matters in the Salesforce kind of world here?
Yeah. So think about the I don't want to use the term old world, but the world we know in Salesforce, in IT, tech, computers, everything. 1 = 1, 0 = 0, right? If you write a piece of code to get this value, do this to it, and output this, you do that a million times with the same inputs, you're going to get the same outputs because it is literally take this, do this to it, and do that. Behind the curtain of AI and particularly LLMs, there's a lot of scoring and decision making based on what you've input that could lead. One does not equal one. You know what I mean? So one, you say, okay, build me an app, build me a CRM. Cool. Okay, cool. The number one, it would need to figure out what that means. When you're prompting to build me a CRM. Okay, cool. What's a CRM? Then, depending on the tool, it will go out and figure out what a CRM is. There's a number of different ways that you could look at that. You could be looking directly at Salesforce, and the AI could more or less rip off the Salesforce data model. It could be looking at another tool. You might see, instead of leads and opportunities, you might see deals and prospects or something like that, right? So they more or less, like leads and prospects versus deals and opportunities, like two labels for the same thing. But how it got there, it stems off from the point at which you give an instruction to the output. It's not a simple take this, do exactly this, and give me the output. It's I'm going to tell you this. LLM, large language model, means there's a lot of data and a lot of information that it needs to quickly go and sift through and match across, your request to what it believes you want done to then pull together some sort of outcome. Each LLM is different. And also within the same LLM, you could ask the same question and it will do a different thing, right? So that's deterministic is old school. Take this, do that, give me the output. Probabilistic is based on the probability of what you have requested, what it thinks and understands it to be, and then giving you the most probable correct answer to that, more or less. Right? That's oversimplifying it, but that's the ultimate difference. It's not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. It's I'm going to give you one and you go and figure out the rest and give me some sort of answer. It could be 1 × 1, or, if you give a really bad prompt.
Yeah, I would say just like you have, like, say you have 3 friends, one's a
Hmm,
PhD, one's, has a high school diploma, and one's, a tradesperson, and they all
hmm,
have different experiences, and you go ask them about some topic, they'll all probably come back with different answers
hmm.
because
That's
they've
right.
been trained, through their experiences on different levels of knowledge, and then depending on how you ask the question as well, if there's consistency every time you talk to each one, you'll get a different response. So I think if people think about it that way, is like it's a
Hmm,
team of experts. I'm going to the AI, which is whatever your AI of choice is.
hmm.
And the AI is trained with certain amount of data up to a certain point. It may or may not go to the internet. It may or may not be biased because it's been trained on certain data that's based on a certain time, certain subject matter, certain expertise. And I think if people realize that, they won't take it as like, oh, it's coming out as 100% factual, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah. Oh, yeah.
you have to still use your discernment, still use your critical thinking skills to say, does this sound right? well, maybe I can check it. Let me go back and check, double check these things, or even test it with another AI, or test it
Mm,
with like your friend who knows that topic, right?
mm,
Like, I think it's better to do that than to just take these things blindly. I think that's why
100%.
there's a bit of a concern around how do people deal with this when you're maybe coming up and you're new, somebody just graduated, and you don't have those years of experience and kind of wisdom of your years to kind of test things out and hypothesize, is this really true what I'm hearing?
Mm.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And the admins coming in today, they're going to have a completely different experience in terms of even just learning the ropes. We're very, very lucky in the Salesforce world that we've got something like a Trailhead that is a really, really good learning resource. But with as we see more and more, like Agent Force for setup, for example, there's going to be less actual hands-on. Click this, go this menu, find the right thing, and more just you're able to communicate it or prompt an AI to do something on your behalf. There'll be less of knowing exactly how to do it manually. So I think that's where learning and having an opportunity like Trailhead is a really, really good thing for new coming admins. But
Yeah.
also from time to time, don't use an AI, especially if it's something you haven't brushed up on in a while. And I do this personally. If I'm like, oh, I could, but also I'm just curious. Hang on, do I go in here again? Oh no, that's right. I need to do it in this order. So sometimes getting hands on and actually doing it yourself, it might cost a little bit more time in the short term, but it's good to keep sharp in
Mm,
terms of on top of everything that happens behind the scenes.
yeah. Going back to something we were talking about before, just the admins and developers and architects and those type of folks. It seems that developers are using AI every day to help with coding. There's Microsoft Copilot, GitHub Copilot, and lots of other tools, Claude Code, and all these things that have come out to help developers. And with such a heavy use, like percent of developers are using this stuff, but then only a small percent of projects are going live that are like customer facing and actually
Mm,
helping the business. So why do you think that is? Is it because people don't trust the AI in the enterprise space? Is it because people aren't imagining the right processes that they can
mm.
implement, or adoption? What do you think that issue is?
This is a really, really, really good question. Um, I think there's a number of different elements to it, right? So if you think about one example that I use quite a bit is with the more recent Agent Force Vibes release, right? So Agent Force Vibes came out, it was a rehash of Agent Force for developers and all that. Um, but that is available and readily accessible everywhere, right? So you can download from Visual Studio Code the store thing. You can get Agent Force Vibes embedded straight into VS Code. If you have a paid Salesforce org, you can go to the little setup cog up the top right, and suddenly underneath Developer Console, there's now also Agent Force Vibes. It's just there and it's readily available. So I think the accessibility of the tools that will help an individual developer or an individual admin or an individual architect, consultant, whatever it is, these tools are more readily available. You can download ChatGPT today. I sound like I'm promoting it. I'm not. You can download it right now for free, no cost. Sign up, done, and use it. Same thing with Gemini. Same thing with Grok. Same thing with the GitHub Copilot. Same thing with all these other tools. They're just there, and they're readily accessible. The other thing is what really when you think about it, there was that pivotal moment that really kickstarted the modern AI or the LLM era, and that was this surge in popularity in ChatGPT. But that wasn't the first. When we think about from a developer perspective, that wasn't the first LLM technology that was suddenly made available. Also, ChatGPT was not the first GPT by OpenAI. GPT, I think that was GPT-3, wasn't it, that came with ChatGPT? There were multiple iterations before it, obviously getting better and better with time. ChatGPT was just an interface over the top, right? But then it also wasn't the first well-known widespread LLM tool. So GitHub Copilot is one that came out in June of 2022, or was made openly available in June 2022, whereas ChatGPT came out sort of towards the end. I think it was November 2020. So those tools have been readily available. But then you think about from a business perspective, right? Tools like Agent Force, and prior to that you had Einstein Copilot and all these other sort of business level tools. If you wanted to get any of these implemented into a Salesforce org, it wasn't free. It wasn't available for everyone. There was a cost involved. And when there's a cost involved for a business, it's a lot more than, the $20, $30 you pay for something like a Chat GPT per month. We're talking licenses for, masses of users. You're charging per usage for all of them. It's not a small cost. So with a business like you or I, we get curious, we can dump, $30 into a new AI tool just because, hey, curious, why not? With a business, there's a lot more, and particularly with sort of the medium and larger businesses, if there's not a cost benefit to what you're doing, you're not doing it. It's that simple. And so we're talking about a brand new technology that is not, going back to the probabilistic versus deterministic too. It's not, hey, if we do this, we're going to save exactly this amount of time. It's a lot less direct, I suppose, would be the ability to prove the value. So I think there's been a lot of not struggle. It's been a different story to tell to decision makers in the business to explain to them where the value will come from for some of these larger tools. There's also like I said, some of these tools, you look at Agentforce, right? A lot of when you're in Prompt Builder, when you're in Agent Builder, sorry, you can pick your model. So a lot of it stems from tools like GPT-5 GPT-5 and whatever else. So they're built on top of these tools that we've sort of adopted over a longer time period. So I think there's a combination between proving the ROI in a way that businesses are willing to take the step and invest money into, and also how long we've had, because you've got to remember too, November 2022, 3 years is all we've had with tools like ChatGPT. So these enterprise tools, we've had even less. So I think we will start to see a bigger shift over time, but that explains why, the developers and admins and end users, not non-business entities have been using AI tools for a lot longer and have a lot more adoption, I think.
Mm.
Mm.
And then finally, for the leaders that are out there who are thinking about the bigger picture, that cost benefit, and also they may be worried about how it's going to impact the culture, right? Because
Mm.
I like to tell people this is not just a technology transformation. It's actually like a human transformation in
Mm.
a sense, a cultural transformation. It's something that's going to impact the way people like do their jobs, or if the jobs even exist.
Mm.
So there's going to be every day people have to kind of digest more information coming out around AI, all the advancements, and it's very hard to keep up. But I think they have to at least make an attempt to understand what
Mm.
is it, where is it heading, how do I balance that cultural shift with the demands of the market and the customers and all those things leaders have to do. Obviously, efficiency is heavily pushed a lot because it costs savings, but people have to remember that there is the human involved and there's a
Mm.
need to have that authentic connection with humans and the customers directly. If we try to automate everything, I'm not sure every customer is going to like that. Some customers are going to say, well, if everything is commoditized and I can get anything abundantly, then what's the differentiator? It's
Mm.
the human connections, right? It's the
Mm.
conversations. So what's your bit of advice for those leaders out there who are dealing with these enterprise decisions around, whether or not they implement Agent Force or just any AI for that matter? What would you tell
Mm.
them?
Again, something that I keep hearing and I really hate is, an AI is like having a digital employee or whatever. And as poetic, I suppose, as that could be, to some people, it could also come across as a bit threatening. Do you know what I mean? So if you're working for a company and they're going, oh, we're going to add an AI colleague to your team, it's a bit like, oh, is that like, that it might be something they sort of take as a human being, take on board a bit personally, a bit threatening in terms of, okay, if they think that an AI can do my job, an AI is not going to cost as much as I do, So things like that, you've got to change the language. You've got to change the language. AI is not, at the very least in the AI that we have today, AI is not an employee. AI is not a team member. AI is a tool that you're empowering your team with. You're helping your team. It reminds me so much of, when I sort of started getting involved in Salesforce a decade ago, and there was, that was bringing systems from Excel spreadsheets into a cloud-based centralized database, right? And the concern back then was, if everything's silent, everyone's doing their own thing, and there was a lot of concern and fear, and this is, I'm not thinking of just one project, this is just a general thing that I noticed in the space back then, was people were worried that if everything was centralized and if everything was visible to the business, that it was the businesses were scrutinizing what they were doing, and the businesses were going to be worried about efficiency, and you're not doing enough, okay, you're out. There was all this fear, whereas we know today, because this is sort of more the norm, that no, by having all your data in one place, for tools like analysis and AI and all these different things, you're telling the full story. You're able to capture the full story. You're able to serve your customers with your customer service team with real-time information. The second you sell something, they could call up and ask how to implement it, and the service team knows what's just been sold a minute ago because it's in a centralized database. It's not about attacking the individual workers. It's not about scrutinizing. It's not about replacing people. It's not none of that. And that's why I really don't like that AI employee terminology. It's a tool, and it's designed to help your teams. You can't let AI replace your culture, just like you can't let AI replace your employees, even by label. So AI
Mm.
is, in my mind, AI is a tool that is there to help your employees and help your businesses and help, to create a better experience for everyone. Even front-facing chatbots in terms of service, it's not there to replace your service. It's there for those dedicated, hardworking service members who have a lot going on and want to be able to give instantaneous responses and feedback to customers, but simply can't. This is to alleviate some of those, how do I change my password? What's the link for this? You know what I mean? Like those little things that could be replaced lets you focus those team members on the real problems, the more engaging problems, quite frankly, as well. So,
And I'll
yeah.
say something controversial here where we may slightly disagree. I will say this may be something that we want it to be,
Mm.
but let's check back in a year or two and let's see
Oh,
where we're at
absolutely.
with AI employees because I think there's an inevitability where if a business says I can have an expert
Mm.
where before I had a team of 20 and I can have a team of 7 now,
Mm.
they might go that direction because
Mm.
the simple cost factor and the business has to service the customers and be competitive. And if you've got companies with very large margins and some other companies have large costs,
Mm.
there's going to be that pressure for the other company to kind of start to find ways to save money in order to compete. And the company with the large margins is going to be like, "I'll drop my price because I know my cost to do business is much
Mm.
lower than the guy who's hired 20 people. I've got 7." So
Mm.
I'm very curious to see how this develops. Of course, I'm a big fan of human beings, so I'm not
Mm.
saying that we should all be replaced. I am one, so I think that's
Yeah.
probably a good thing. But yeah, let's see where that goes. I think there is going to be roles that will definitely go away. Now, how fast that happens, if you look at the news and the media and the latest YouTube video, it's pretty frightening.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm hopeful that we'll find ways as humans to adjust as we always do. And I'm very glad to have talked to you today and hear your perspective on the Salesforce world and ecosystem. And yeah, keep educating out there. Love the Salesforce Ben stuff, and really thank you, Tim, for being a guest today on the show. And look forward to connecting soon.
Absolutely, man. No, I appreciate you having me on. It's been a really, really good discussion. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
Too easy, Sean. Bye.